Continuing our reading in Hellbent for Election by Phyllis Speshock, Chapter 8. We stood immediately in the front upstairs bedroom of the big square house. A housewife in a gingham dress flitted about with a feather duster, humming, giving the pillows a plump, the bottom of the bed a pat, and disappearing at last down the hallway. I think, I told Alexis, that she walked right through me. Very possible, he said with a shrug. You have no substance, at least none that she can realize, and she can realize only what she already knows. She can't hear us either? Not at all, Hellbent. She hasn't the ear to hear. So then, this was your mother's bedroom? I looked about the room, freshly papered now and with crisp curtains at the window. My mother had not been such a housekeeper, at least in the later years. This was her bedroom, though the bed was not here against the wall, but rather diagonally in that corner. I was 6 years old. I remember. Yes, Hellbent. Don't bog down now. I ran in from playing in the fields to ask whether Della and I might open the new package of cookies. She had stopped having time for baking. Della had teased me into doing the asking, saying that she must always be the brave one, and that by right I should have been the girl. So she waited downstairs, and I went up, two at a time, and burst into the room. We had looked downstairs and called and thought she might be taking a nap, which she often did now that she had begun drinking the wine, too. Did it not occur to you that she would be angry if you woke her? Of course. That was where the bravery came in, only she was not asleep at all. There was a man with her. Did you know the man? Yes. He had started coming to the house regularly. He drank a great deal and talked a great deal and told loud, boastful stories. She had told us to call him Uncle, but his real name was Thrill Chaser. Did you see immediately? No, only after several seconds. Why did you stand there for several seconds? I could not seem to move. Why did you not speak? I had no voice. Did you know you were seeing something you ought not? I sensed it. How did you sense it? By the shame and embarrassment I felt. When she finally saw you, did she scold and threaten you? Why should she scold and threaten me, Alexis? I had done nothing wrong. The door was not even shut. But then, I suspect that you are implying human parents often shift the blame to the offspring, as when they punish out of anger, they say, that child makes me furious. If he did not make me furious, I would not have to beat him. That is the general idea, he said. But what did she say to you? Did she make excuses? Did she tell you not to tattle? I looked again at the clean innocence of the room. No, I said. I had the feeling she would have liked me to tattle. It had something to do with the spite. She only smiled and said, What is it, Wilful? I felt quite foolish, modestly pricking all over me, and I said, I forget. And did you tattle on her? No, that is only to Della, which was not tattling at all. And what did Della think of it? Della helped me to come to the temporary conclusion that it was a thing done in place of going to church. For later on, we saw my father and his lady friends sneaking off to the dark corners of the house, too. And it all came about at the time the church attending was banned, except through spite. Did you have any idea what the guidebook said about sex, Hellbent? Not at the time. Later I learned that the guidebook did not frown upon sex at all, providing one kept to the rules. Which were? Either be married or behave, and once married, remain faithful. Well now, he said, that sounds simple enough. I gave him a long, cold look. Do not try to trick me, Alexis, I said. By now, I am on to your arguments. Also, I can cough up a few of your sins. I seem to recall that some of you looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair and begot giants. Hellbent, he warned, wagging a forefinger. That was the sons of God. Well, Aren't you a son of God? He rocked back on his heels and looked at me chidingly. As far as you are concerned, Hellbent, I am a celestial being sent to minister to you. You cannot know all the mysteries. You must first gain entrance, but then I am also on to you. You have dragged in this bit of foolishness to divert my attention from the main question, which is, how deeply ingrained in you was the idea that sex was a substitute for religion? Or did you only accept this idea superficially because it gave permission later to your own desires and deeds? If you're trying to trick me into confessing fornication, Alexis, you need not bother. We both know I am guilty, quite guilty, and I would still not be a bit unhappy if the accumulation of my sins were to condemn me to hell. In the hope of this, I will add another sin to the pile and make excuse for my later behavior. Yes, as a child, I was confused by the substitution. As an adolescent, I had figured out the right and the wrong of it, but I did not care. I had in the meantime been exposed to more denominational harangues and had concluded that if the prize for behaving according to the guidebook were to be an eternity spent with such wretches, well then, I would as soon aim for the opposite. Would you like to explain that harangues, Hellbent? Gladly. Realizing that Della and I had in all probability seen and heard too much, both sets of relatives set out to rectify the injury by inflicting two other injuries. My mother's relatives taught us that sex and the body were bad and vulgar. My father's relatives taught us that there was nothing any more wrong with sex and the body than with eating, sleeping, drinking, smoking, or any other physical pleasures. Oh, kettle of porridge, said Alexis. How could two such opposites come from such simple rules? And what were the conclusions? I grunted. The first conclusion, somehow, that he loved babies but he could not tolerate his own design for procreating them. The second concluded that moderation was the key, unlatching the door to all forgiveness. They were especially vague as to whether the moderation should occur inside or outside of marriage, since, of course, my father was one of their flock and equally guilty with my mother. And you decided from this muddle that it would be more pleasant all around for you to permit their belief to send them to one direction while you determinedly aimed for the other? Yes, but I have another excuse for my later wickedness, too, Alexis. Actually, this had more to do with him than I knew at the time. You see, I had come to the knowledge by the time I had come to the sin that there is within each of us a curiously insatiable longing for something not given us in the everyday fulfillment of hungers, that is, in eating, sleeping, drinking, merrymaking. I deluded myself for a time into thinking sex was the satisfaction of that longing, but that was years and years later. We had left the bedroom and walked down the long hallway to the 2 flights of stairs. Alexis sidestepped a small dog which turned and stared after him for a moment with its head tilted. 2 little boys ran up the steps and threw me on their way to the bathroom, and then we passed through the kitchen and out to the back porch. I am glad I am what I am, Alexis mused, sniffing the warm air. Nor do I especially look forward to the time when your species takes up the task of judging ours, but then I assume that there are many mysteries which shall be made clear to me too. Shall we walk for a spell, Hellbent? Would you rather I called you willful? Hellbent is fine, I said. Keep it that way. When I have finished elaborating the contradictions in which I have been saturated, you will agree with me. Alexis elevated his brows, but did not comment. We walked across the green lawn and out to the road. And that is the end of chapter 8.